Before we can actually jump into the code, we need to install Bicep, get some directories set up, and get the VS Code extension. So I'm here at github.com/azure/bicep blob main docs installing.md. So if you just go to the Azure Bicep org and repo, under the docs, you'll see some installation guides. So you have some installations for Linux to install the Bicep client, Mac OS, and then of course Windows. So Windows, there are two options. You can either install it via the installer, so just like an executable, or you can run this PowerShell script. And what this PowerShell script is essentially doing is it's creating a directory for Bicep. It's downloading right here Bicep from the latest release, and then it's adding Bicep to your path. Finally, you just type in bicep --help to ensure that Bicep has been installed. Next, you can install the VS Code extension by just navigating to the browser here. And as you can see, you can install it right from here. So depending on whatever you're comfortable with, if you're not comfortable with PowerShell and you're on Windows, feel free to install it via the installer. If you're okay with PowerShell, you can just literally copy and paste the script and run it. And once you do that, you just go to the marketplace here. I'm going to click install. I'm going to click continue, allow, and then what that's going to do is that's going to pop up VS Code for me, and then I'm going to be able to install the Bicep extension. So do keep in mind that this product is still in, I wouldn't even consider it beta yet, I would still consider it alpha. So it's going to be a little bit of a manual effort to get it set up. Next, I'm going to show you essentially what the code looks like. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this because we're going to do it in the demo, but I do just want to show you quickly essentially what it would look like. So as you can see here, you have parameters that you can set up. And the funny thing about these parameters is it looks very much like C#. So instead of saying param, you would put var for C#, for example. So you have param, location, string, and then the parameters that you want to pass in. So you can literally pass in these values at runtime. And then this is the core code. So if you're familiar with Terraform, Terraform uses something called HCL, and it's very similar to what Azure Bicep is doing. Now there are some key distinctions. So again, if you're familiar with Terraform, you would know that like right here, there's typically, some sort of metadata name in quotes. It would be name equals name, for example, or name equals var name. So it is a little bit different. However, it's pretty similar. So with that, go ahead and install Azure Bicep, the VS Code extension, and then I'll meet you over in VS Code. In VS Code, the first thing that we're going to want to do is create the new Bicep file. So I'm going to type main.bicep. Okay, so this is going to be where all of our configurations are and all of our resources that we're creating. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to run a command bicep build main.bicep. So what this is going to do is this is going to almost initialize the Bicep file and make that the source of truth. So as you can see, this new main.json was created, and this looks very familiar from like an ARM perspective. So even though you're not writing your code in JSON, JSON is still the source of truth with the schema here, and the schema is essentially pointing to the same thing that Azure ARM does. Next, what we're going to do is add some code to the Bicep file. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a key vault. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add in our parameters. And our parameters here, we can see the location is East US. The name is Bicep Key Vault 92. Of course, must be globally unique with every key vault. And then the tenant ID that we want to have access to this key vault. Next, we're going to type resource, and then we're going to give this resource a name. We'll say key vault. And then I'm going to put 2 semicolons here. And what you're going to see pop up is all of the different resources that can be created. So this is the really cool part about the VS Code extension. All of the resources have IntelliSense. So, you can kind of go through this list and figure out what you want to create almost. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in key vault, and we're going to use the 2019 /vaults. Ensure that you're using /vaults. Okay. And then from here, I'm going to do equals, bracket, enter. And then I'm going to start typing in my values. So name, colon, it's going to be name because remember it's pointing to that parameter. Then we're going to do location, location. All right. So you see this little error here, this squiggly. It's specifically saying that it's missing some properties. For example, the properties. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to type properties, colon. Next, I'm going to type in my tenant ID for these properties. And as you can see, again, this IntelliSense is working. It knows that, okay, tenant ID is supposed to be here. So then I'm going to do colon tenant, right, to point to this parameter here. Next, I'm going to work on the SKU. So I'm going to type SKU, colon, bracket, and then this is going to require a name. So the name is going to be standard because that's the SKU that we're using. And then the family, we'll just do it from A. All right, we'll save that here. And as you can see, the property SKU is not allowed on objects of type Microsoft Key Vaults. Permissible properties include tags. And the reason why we're seeing that is because this SKU needs to be part of the properties. So I'm just going to remove that bracket here, right? What we're going to do is we're going to indent this so it's cleaned up, and then I'll put another bracket. And as you can see, that error goes away. So the one thing that you're going to notice is the errors are pretty decent so far, you know, from like an error handling perspective and stuff. It's actually going to tell you what's needed. The next thing that we're going to need is we're going to need some access policies, again, inside of the properties. So I'm going to type access policies, and again, the IntelliSense is working. And I do want to show one thing here. You see the type? Now, right at the end, we can see that it's actually looking for a list almost. So I'm going to type access policies, and then I'm going to create a list here. Now, notice if I do like brackets, for example, we're going to get a little squiggly gray line under here, and it's going to say the property access policies expected of value type access policy entry, which to me, I don't know if this is certain or not, but this looks like it's looking for a list. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type that. And I'm not going to pass in any access policies. We just need this here for the Key Vault to actually run. Next, we're going to run the build again. So I want to open this main.json here so you see how there's nothing here right now. Now watch what happens when I build from the main.bicep. And boom, as we can see, all of these values are now in here. And again, this is pretty much an ARM template here, right? So, you know, the ARM template is still the source of truth. The JSON is still the source of truth here, okay? But the key thing is you don't have to actually write in it. You can write in a Bicep language, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to create our Bicep configuration. So I'm going to be using PowerShell here, new AZ resource group deployment. I'm going to be pointing to the template file of main.json, and then the resource group, I'll go ahead and I'll type in AZ400 because that's my resource group that I have available in Azure. Okay, and as we can see, again, this is a very common error that's going to pop up, and I want to show you this. You see how it's showing one error exists soft delete with the same vault name? That's because I have a key vault in there that I've deleted with this name. So let's go ahead and add another 9.2 there. We're going to clear our screen. I'm going to build again. So the build file or the main.json knows what the new name is supposed to be. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run my configuration again. Let me close out of this pane. And as we can see, our new key vault with Bicep has been created. The provisioning state is succeeded. And that's how you can get started using Bicep. Now, I'm going to be putting some instructions and I'm going to be putting some helpful resources in the GitHub link right above. Thank you so much for watching.